February 24th, 2026. Well, I didn't get, in my last video, didn't get into the subject of the Supreme Court decision against Trump's tariffs, and I kind of indicated I would like to follow up on that, which I'm going to do in this video, among other things. But so first off, let's get to the tariffs and what I think about this. I tend to think that the Supreme Court decision was less based on legal principle and more of just a reaction to Trump himself and the way he's been handling the tariff issue. In other words, in the dissent, as I understand it from Justice Thomas, I think he pointed out quite clearly that the interpretation that the administration had been using is kind of consistent with previous cases that in similar language in the past, particularly things going back to the Nixon administration and that period. So, and I would probably think that Gorsuch, I think, is probably a bit more of an iconoclast, I think, probably having slight libertarian tendencies. And of course, the three Democrats, I mean, they would vote the other way if a Democrat president was doing the same thing. So I think they have no intellectual legitimacy at all of their opinion. It's simply an opinion based on political bias. So we have three conservatives that basically go along with Trump, and then we have three others who don't. And I think these people, they aren't the ones that are really the strictest textualists. That maybe Gorsuch could be, but the other two, Barrett and Roberts, are hardly strict textualists, as they say. The little, so that is not the legit reason why they did it. I think they just feel that the way that Trump has been handling the tariff issue, particularly the degree to which he simply puts tariffs on friend and foe alike, and changes his mind over little irritations and will increase or decrease them at the drop of a hat. Just, it's like, they make a decision down in Brazil. He wants to put a tariff on coffee from Brazil because of what they're doing with the previous president. Or, the ongoing, dispute with Canada, which seems way over the top. And so forth. And I think that the degree to which it was just so massive and so at times helter-skelter, I think is why those two justices voted against Trump's position on the tariffs. And so at least that's my assessment of it. So I think maybe Gorsuch did it from an intellectual point of view of sorts, although, and where you may disagree with Thomas intellectually, I think the other two were, Barrett and Roberts, were just annoyed at Trump's general approach to things, and I think that's why they went with the liberals on it. So that's why we're where we are. And then, of course, I think, as usual, Trump didn't help himself with the next Supreme Court decision, but then attacking the Supreme Court. He needs to realize you can't fire these people, okay? So there's sometimes you need to kick rear, and sometimes but at any rate, it is what it is. As it is, he's found other aspects of the law where he can impose tariffs, and maybe in some of them for not as lengthy period of time, and maybe others for longer periods of time. So it looks like from the financial things, it'll lower the overall average tariff by a little bit, but not by much. So it'll probably continue. There will be some issue to the degree to which the people he's made trade deals with will try to weasel out of it. I hear that the European Union may be thinking about that. So, and of course, this ongoing dispute with Europe is well known as well. So we'll have to see how that plays out. So anyway, if you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell for notifications. And or you can follow me on Rumble. I post there as well. That's another good site if you're a subscriber to that. So anyhow, the other thing I kind of am getting into here, and I guess this will accompany State of the Union, which most people will be seeing, either seeing it about right after this video, or maybe already seen it, and he's probably going to address the economy. To me, this whole economics issue, I don't see any way in which the current economy is any worse than it was last year. Now, it may not have turned into nirvana, and maybe Trump is suffering a little bit from what I call the syndrome of overpromising. We keep talking about golden ages and it'll be so great beyond all belief and all, and then things turn out to be just about the way it was before for a lot of people. Probably not really worse. And you have Democrats will just reflexively say worse, even if it's just the same, because they're probably not being really honest about it, because it is pretty much the same. Actually, the tariffs themselves haven't noticeably increased inflation. I mean, one can micro calculate and try to estimate what what you might have had in terms of inflation if there had been no tariffs would be beat down to 2% or something, or whatever. But on the other hand, I think minor tweaks in inflation at that level isn't the real issue. It shouldn't be. The real issue is the overall health of the economy and employment, and what the trend in salaries are. Because after all, if the inflation went up 3% and your salary went up 5%, you're better off, right? If on the other hand, if inflation went up 3% and your salary didn't go up at all, then you're worse off. So that's the kind of thing. And a lot of this affordability issue is coming out of New York and New Jersey, and I guess even Virginia, particularly Northern Virginia, and where you've got the whole, all these areas have a lot of local governments that are, well, Virginia might have been okay, but there you have his ongoing attack on the government worker. And obviously, for every government worker that was laid off, there was probably 10 or more that were scared of being laid off. So that didn't go over well with them. And so since they're concentrated in that area, you're going to lose that state. And the other two places are probably suffering more from Democrat taxation and policies than they are the actual tariffs or anything. So, I mean, the tariffs are meant to, after all, bring high-paying jobs back into the country, and the deportation of illegals is supposed to reduce the amount of illegal labor, so that instead of having basically a illegal immigrant driving a semi who doesn't know how to read the road signs properly, we could have an American who does have that job, and maybe at a better pay than the illegals getting it. So I think that overall the policy can be defended. The problem I have is I don't know that Trump has this style of explanation like I'm trying to do that would be persuasive to the non-Trump supporter. I mean, I think the Trump supporter is supporting Trump because they support Trump. Okay, that's good. He's got their votes. But it's that marginal group in between that swings back and forth every election that's the problem. And to those people, you need to more lay out very calmly why your policy is going, what it's meant to do, and show signs of success. I think overall, for most people, I ran into somebody today who apparently didn't have this experience, probably because of the, the economic range that they're in terms of adjusted gross income. But essentially, most people have been withholding taxes probably just like they did before the big, beautiful bill, and so certain people are going to have some tax breaks in it that they wouldn't have had before. Particularly the seniors will get an extra $2,000 of senior deduction. It's a exemption, I guess, and then the $6,000 deduction if your AGI for a single individual is within a certain range, and a lot of the retirees that don't have a lot of extensive investments, they're living more or less on Social Security and maybe marginal IRA or 401k money to none. That group probably will have a situation where they will probably not be paying any tax at all on their Social Security. Those that have substantial 401k or IRAs or other sources of income, those people may be the point where they won't get the full $6,000 they may of deduction. And remember, that's a deduction, which means that much off times your marginal tax rate at the top. That's what you really save. So if you're in the 24% bracket, you get a little bit under $1,500 money back, and that would be probably a nice surprise in the tax return. The other thing that's, again, not emphasized enough, and it should be, that the administration's dropping the ball on this. They should be talking about the world that would have been if Trump hadn't got in and passed his bill, in which case most of the middle class would have had a substantial tax increase, way beyond any of these things we're talking about here. And it would go back to the rates that would have been basically in the inherited from the Obama years, okay? And he's not talking enough about that as the major thing he accomplished, and that they don't even talk about this. And is the Democrats claiming they would have actually maintained the Trump tax cuts, that they lied and said they were all for the rich, where in fact the rich, basically in an average state, didn't get much of a savings at all. You went down from 39.6 for the millionaire people to 37, but if they have a state income tax of say 6%, it basically is a wash, because they lost the state deduction, okay? So effectively, it's a wash at the high income level. It's the people in the middle income levels that actually would got the break. And I don't know, but I don't think this is being emphasized enough. Of course, you also have the tipped workers that can have, they'll get $25,000 of tip income tax-free, and the overtime premium, just the premium for people working overtime, would be free of income tax. And that, I mean, you have to be specific about this. The way it's said generally, no, I think you still are going to pay FICA tax on it. Okay, so yeah, on that overtime premium. So anyway, that just kind of running through that, and so I don't think that the economy numbers, certainly in terms of the stock market and so forth, again, that has to be talked out in terms of that will eventually create jobs. Now, in certain sectors that are directly impacted by AI, there may be a little bit of sluggishness and basically college-educated people that are not in high specialty areas, I think, may suffer a little bit compared to what they might have been. I don't think that hardcore software engineers or nurses, registered nurses, or electrical engineers, or whatever, MBAs, I don't think they're going to be suffering a lot because of it, but there's certain groups that may have some impact. And that's just part of the transition that would have happened anyhow, I think, regardless of who was president. Unless the Democrats are going to go full Luddite and say we're going to block AI. And so, anyhow, so that's kind of my rundown on that and the economic issue. One last thing I want to get into here, I guess this is the last thing. The Trump, has reacted to I had one about Obama and the UAP subject. Well, now Trump has jumped into the mix, which has created kind of an interesting situation where he first throws out something that's kind of interesting. And now there's a lot of commentary about what he's going to do on the subject, which, again, I have no idea. Even Laura Trump has indicated that something might be coming, and there's some guy in England whose name I don't recall right at the moment, but he was laying out what he was going to do in some speech, which might be delivered on the appropriate anniversary of Roswell sometime in July. And, of course, I think that Steven Spielberg will hope they wait to July because his movie Disclosure Day, which is supposed to come out in June the 12th, I believe, they'd like to have that have pretty much a full theater run before any real disclosure occurs, right? So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'll be wrapping this up for now, and as always, it'll be posted on YouTube and Rumble, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.